things just keep getting better for Montreal as Juraj Slafkvosky has, in my opinion, by far his best game as a Montreal Canadian, and that seems to be a trend as of late. Plus, Caufield breaks his 6-game goal drought, and Primeau gets his second win with a stellar performance in net. All that plus, we got to stick around for an Arber Xhekaj injury update later in the video as well. I'll be covering all that on this episode of Habs Digest. Let's just jump into this. I mean, there's no point in waiting, and it feels like momentum is shifting. It feels like a tide is turning. And before I go on any more in this video, I know you guys are going to go in and say, well, it's the San Jose Sharks, and the last game was the Anaheim Ducks. Yes, I know. This is a game, and honestly, the first two periods, I was like, it's going to be embarrassing if they lose to the San Jose Sharks. The Sharks are the worst team in the NHL. There's no getting around that. They have the worst goals against average. They were averaging coming into this game less than 2 goals per game. We actually allowed higher than their season average in goals tonight, this evening, whatever. But regardless, Montreal knew that they needed to come in and get a win against this team, and it felt like there really wasn't that much urgency early on, but boy, by the late game did things ever turn around. Let's just show the stats for the game. Of course, Caufield, his biggest thing, by the way, shout out Cayden Primeau. He got an assist on the Caufield goal. Actually, it was Jonathan Kovacevic with an absolute snipe. Also getting Jayden Struble, his first ever NHL point there. I believe that was the end of the second period. Kovacevic, like, bar and down. It was phenomenal. But then in that third, after a great shift in the offensive zone from Slafkovsky, something he had been doing all night long, he breaks his stick on a one-time slap shot, runs back to the bench, calmly gets a new stick, steps in on defense, helps break up a play, and then makes the outlet pass after Cayden Primeau touches it to him, and Cole Caufield with a beautiful snipe on the 2-on-1. And eventually the game went to overtime. Overtime was, I was going to say uneventful, but guess what, guys? A certain Juraj Slafkvosky got some overtime minutes tonight. He played in overtime, and he even got a shot in the shootout, and he nearly won the game. If you guys didn't catch this game, oh my gosh, like, he was everywhere. He was absolutely everywhere. He had so many scoring chances, got a primary assist on the Caufiled goal, and in the shootout, to win the shootout in the third round, he had a filthy dangle, but he just hit the post. He had the whole net. Maybe he was nervous. Maybe the puck jumped on him. I don't know. There's a wide open net. He hit the post. He was amazing, and the stat card backs that up. These game scorecards, we always like to talk about it. Look at that top, well, I don't want to say top line. They were the second line, but it's the Caufiled, Slafkovsky, Dvorak line. My goodness, were they effective tonight. Christian Dvorak, like, as always, just kind of does solid. Nothing super spectacular out there, but he was pretty good. There was actually a really cool play in overtime I'll talk about in a minute. But look at Slafkovsky and Caufield. Both of these guys, clearly the best players on the ice tonight, and that's exactly what Montreal needed. We needed Caufield to break that scoreless drought. We also needed Anderson to break the scoreless drought, and yeah, did you catch him? Well, he's down there third from the bottom. Look at his other two line mates, Sean Monahan, Tanner Pearson. It's weird. Monahan, Pearson, and Gallagher was working when they were together. It just seems like any line Anderson goes to, they die, but he's going to bounce back eventually. I still have faith, I hope. But man, that second line tonight was something else, and it was Slafkovsky and Caufield just being everywhere. And Slafkovsky, as Craig Button and Brian Woodrick pointed out on the broadcast, like, he just looks more confident. These times where he'll just take the puck, he doesn't look like he's getting knocked off balance nearly as much. He's laying his body into people, and he's taking it from his own zone all the way down the ice into the offensive zone, and he just looks really good. And I'm still seeing lots of people say, oh, he still needs time in the AHL to develop, even in the game thread today, which kind of surprised me, because I feel like a game like this is exactly what you finally wanted to see from Slav. He was getting his shots on net, he was screening in front, he was doing everything right. Actually, even on that Kovacevic goal, Slafkovsky was there in front of Mackenzie Blackwood. He was the one screening Blackwood, stepping to the side as Kovacevic fires the shot. Like, he was, like, every single impact play for Montreal tonight involved Juraj Slafkvosky. And even defensively a little bit, it was really good. But we will move on from him. I wanted to talk about that play I just mentioned in overtime. So the Habs come out in overtime with an interesting strategy. I saw it was Dvorak, Suzuki, and Matheson. And I was like, something's up here. I was like, they're up to some trickery. And they sure were. Dvorak wins the draw fairly cleanly back to Mike Matheson. And what does he do? He kind of waits by the bench for a second. And then Matheson fires a pass. And as he fires it, Dvorak hops on the bench. Caufield jumps off, had a breakaway in the first 5 seconds of overtime off a beautiful set play. Like, I had never seen the Habs do that. It was incredible. He didn't score, but he easily could have his second of the game and his 8th overtime goal of his career. He didn't. Luckily, the Habs ended up getting the win anyway. And that was in the shootout with Jesse Ullinen. And while, Juraj Slafkvosky had the move, he shook Blackwood. He had the open net, couldn't quite convert. Jesse Ullinen, like, okay, the whole Habs team was just filthy tonight. Suzuki with another filthy shootout, classic move. Even Devo had a nice filthy move, couldn't score, but Jesse Ylönen puts it away in the shootout to beat the Sharks. And there's so much I could talk about in this game, right? I barely mentioned Jayden Struble, who I thought played another very solid game again. Like I said, picking up his first point. Kovacevic tying his career high with 3 goals in the season. Cayden Primeau, I think they said in the broadcast, this is his first time ever having more than 1 win in a season. And that's a big thing for Cayden Primeau as well. He had a 939 save percentage. I'll pop the stats back up if you want to just have another look. I know I'm popping up lots of images, but there's a lot to talk about. Cayden Primeau, 939 save percentage, 31 saves on 33 shots. Really, really good. 65 minutes. Awesome. And again, got an assist on one of the goals. Struble, Kovacevic. I mean, these guys all had really, really good games. But I want to bring your eyes up top to the forwards and look at Alex Newhook, Cole Caufield, but also Juraj Slafkovsky. Juraj Slafkovsky, 19 minutes 44 seconds. Other than Newhook, Caufield, and Suzuki, who got a bit more power play time. Juraj Slafkovsky, 157 on the power play, 1944 time on ice. Like, he got 20 minutes tonight, and he got a shootout attempt, and they finally put him on the ice in overtime with Alex Newhook. It was just like, it was the Slafkovsky game. Did he score? No. Like, is he probably going to end up having a hat trick at some point not that far into the future? We'll say that's the Slafkovsky game. Yeah, I mean, who knows how long it'll take, but we'll definitely have some multi-goal Slafkovsky games. But for now, this is the defining game for him. The announcers were saying, constantly praising him throughout the entire game. He looked dominant, and I know it's a Sharks team that's very weak defensively. And they have some small defensemen as well. But Slafkovsky was making his presence known, and that's what we wanted to see. So all in all, just an awesome, awesome win. Wish they could have beat the Sharks down by more. Maybe broken Anderson's goalless streak as well. Maybe get Slaf a goal. But Slaf's now up to 4 points in his last 5 games. Just kind of an all-around great game for the Montreal Canadiens. And yeah, looking forward to tomorrow's game against the LA Kings. But before we get to that, they have a bit of a lineup change that I got to talk to you guys about. Is they, during the game, whoop, that's not it. Well, time's right. We got a Xhekaj injury update. Now, this came out during the game. The Habs made a waiver, not a waiver move. They made a call-up from Laval. It's Joel Armia. He's coming back. He's back. He's going to meet the team in Los Angeles Friday evening. So tonight, they've placed Arber Xhekaj in IR retroactively to his last game. Now, I can't remember if that was against Boston or if that was earlier last week, but regardless, people, those of you who are worried about Arber Xhekaj being put on IR, from my understanding, this is just a way to get an extra forward up. Maybe they're going to sit someone like a Pizzetta, or maybe they're going to sit Ylönen. Probably not after he scored that shootout winner. But IR just means you have to be physically unable to play from 7 days of the date that you're put on IR. So if he, let's say last Saturday night was Xhekaj's last game, I don't even think it was, it might have been before that. It just means that he can't play for a week. So all in all, it's not going to matter. He's still going to be ready when the Habs come back from the West Coast road trip. Well, we don't know that, but he's still eligible to play in the Habs' first game after the West Coast road trip. So don't worry about the IR. So it's kind of not a bad thing, but we still haven't heard exactly like how bad it is. But by them doing this, to me, that indicates he'll be ready. They're just trying to buy some time, get some extra guys in, and to me, this means he'll be ready for their first game after they come back. We don't know that for sure, but I think it's pretty well written in stone there. And Joel Armia coming up, who knows? Maybe he'll get a chance. Maybe he'll be able to pot another goal. He has one this season. I'm not sure. Maybe they're going to experiment with the lines a bit more. But cool that he's getting the call up from Laval again to play with the team. I mean, Joel Armia, a lot of people don't really like him, of course, for the contract, but he still maybe deserves another shot. And we just got one last thing to talk about here. We're kind of running into the end of the video, but stick around for this. Don't click away yet, because this is really interesting. And look, it's not like that amazing on its own, but I wanted to show this to you guys because I saw this and I thought it was really, really telling for the Montreal Canadiens. Here's a look at their average draft, performance from 2007 to 2018. Now, I know this seems very specific. 2007, so they started in 07, which means Carey Price is not accounted for here, and they stopped in 2018, so guys like RHP, guys like Cole Caufield, guys like Cayden Guhle, they are not accounted for there. 2007 was the Ryan McDonough year, and the PK Subban year, and I think the Max Pacioretty year, so I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, all 3 of those, which is obviously shows how good they were, but overall, their value was below expected pretty much every year except for 2010, and maybe even 2016, but this, to me, kind of exhibits where Montreal was for the past, I guess, like 15 years, it feels like, right? In the Trevor Timmins era of scouting, the Habs just never had above average drafts. They had a guy like Carey Price, like one of the best goalies of all time, to backstop them, but they could just never get that top end talent in the draft. And we can see, looking through this, like, it's kind of a miracle that they've been so competitive, especially in a year like that 2014 year. Now, they made lots of trades. Obviously, they liked spending money when they could. It was just not always the smartest way to spend money. And you wish they maybe would have spent more money on the scouting department, because the Habs drafting history is just not good. But now, I say we take a look at this in another few years, and we start looking at the Kent Hughes, Jeff Gorton draft picks. Slav is getting better every day. Reinbacher, we don't know. Obviously, we'll have Caufield there. Suzuki was not a Habs draft pick, so fair enough. He won't be there, but you'll see RHP, you'll see Cayden, Guhle. You'll see lots of guys making their way up this list, showing how much better the Habs are getting. Guys like Joshua Waugh, Philip Méchard, Owen Beck. We don't know how well these guys are going to transition to the NHL, or if all of them will even make the NHL, which a few of them definitely should. But still, I think this was just really interesting to me, as it kind of signifies the difference between eras. The old scouting team versus the new scouting team. The old versus the new in Montreal. This new generation is taking the team over now, and we're seeing the kind of success early, like the kind of success from players individually early that we want them to have in this future Stanley Cup window. So just an interesting thing. Thought I'd show you guys, because I thought you might find it interesting. It's the end of the video. Not a lot of you are still around, but if you found that interesting, let me know down below, because I don't know, I like those kind of nerdy stat things. But that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 9,000 subs. And if you're still watching now and you haven't hit subscribe, that's probably not many of you, but if it is you, hit the button, because we'd really appreciate it. We're on the road to 10K. We'd love to hit that very soon. I've been your host, Josh Gosse. I'll catch you in the next one.